Okay, so can you hear me and see my slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So you have seen the problem with this single linkage clustering problem algorithm, where you see the elongated clusters, okay, because of this nature of the similarity that you're using. So we solve this using a technique called complete link or complete linkage clustering algorithm, okay. So in this case, so the main thing again, the margin steps will be very similar. There is no difference. The way that you compute the two cluster similarity or distance is different. Okay. So in this case, we define the similarity or the distance between two clusters based on two most dissimilar object. Okay. In the previous case, we defined this as a two most similar object. In this case, we want to define this as a two most dissimilar object. Okay. Now, if you look at this particular example, again, the numbers are showing the distance between different points, and I have two clusters, two groups, and so on. So in this case, the distance between cluster 1 and cluster 2 would be 10. Okay. Now, you recall that if I had used single linkage clustering technique, I would have gotten 3. Okay, distance between cluster 1 and cluster 2. Okay. But in complete linkage clustering algorithm, I am getting 10. Okay, because this is the distance between two most dissimilar objects. All right. So now we again use this thing to form the cluster. The same technique, once you define the distance or similarity between two groups, you can apply the same technique to do that. So what is the good thing about this one? Now this particular clustering technique more likely to find out tighter spherical clusters that are typically preferable. Okay, because you are not allowing the points to be very dispersed. Okay, in this case, because you are essentially guided by the two most dissimilar objects. If there are some points which are far apart from the other points, of course, that is going to increase the distance between two clusters. So you're not going to merge them together. Okay, so that's the essential idea. So the elongation problem is actually solved in this particular case. Now let's take a very small example again and then try to see what happens. So in this case again, the very first step would be to, because you have individual clusters, and then we will take the minimum thing and then going to merge it. So again, we are going to do this, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do this. Then next, we are going to merge these two together. Okay, because if you consider the distances between all possible clusters based on their most dissimilar object, the same minimum. Okay. Similar way, you can get the clusters again, and finally you get one. Okay. So the cluster formation is different than what we have seen in case of single linkage clustering technique. Okay. So the only difference, which I again want to emphasize, is the way you compute the distance of the similarity between two clusters. That's the only difference. Okay. Otherwise, it remains the same. Okay. Now, let me take a very concrete example of single linkage clustering with actual numbers, okay, and then show how it actually happens. Now, always the thing that you are dealing with, the input rather, is basically similarity or distance matrix. Okay, so it's a kind of symmetric matrix that you are dealing with. Okay, so these rows are basically rows of the columns are basically the objects, individual objects. And the numbers inside the particular entry inside the matrix is basically either distance or similar to whatever. In this case, I am taking the distance, okay, not similarity. Okay, so in this case. Now, given this data, if I want to apply single linkage clustering technique, of course, out of all possible pairs, I have to find out the minimum value and which I'm going to merge next. So in this case, that I can merge the points 1 and 2 together. Okay, which you can see on the right side. Okay, because among all possible like clusters here, this 1 and 2 has the minimum distance. Okay, so I'm going to put them together. Okay, now I ask you this question: what will be the next merging step? Can somebody tell me? You are applying single link clustering technique.
Make a representative for 1 and 2 and then recalculate the distances.
Right. Okay, let me just ask this question, simple question. So now that 1 and 2 are in one cluster, okay. So what would be the distance between the cluster, the newly formed cluster 1, 2, and say, for example, 3, using single linkage technique?
Three.
It's 3. Okay, why are you saying that 3?
So the supernode 1, 2 has I mean 1 and 2. So those distances are 6 and 3. So single link will be the closest point.
So yeah, so the distance between 3 and 2 is how much? 3, right?
Yes.
And distance between 3 and 1 is how much?
6.
Okay, so it will be 3. You're right, absolutely, yes, that's correct. Okay, perfect, all right. So now then, what would be my merging step? Now I have 4 clusters, 5, 4, 3, and 2 and 1 another group. So 4 groups. So what would be merging step?
1, 2, and 3.
1, 2, and 3. Okay, all right. Let me see. So this is 1, 2, and 3. Oh, all right. So this is 1, 2, and 3. Okay, all right, fine. Okay. Now then, what next?
Four and 5.
4 and 5. Let's see. It's 4 and 5. Absolutely yes. And then finally you get 1. Right. So you are right. Absolutely yes. So that's how basically you can compute the clusters or the dendrogram, merging history, and so on. So the only difference when you same way we will proceed. So only difference when you apply complete linkage. So you have to tweak your distance measure a little bit. That's it, or nothing else. Okay. Now let me just go back to the previous example. This one, simple example. Now in this case, if I go by, for instance, complete linkage clustering algorithm, what would be the distance between group 1, 2, and 3? It would be 6. It would be 6, right? Okay, all right. Now, accordingly, you can basically, so you can compute this distances, the similarity between groups, and then merge the minimum, having the minimum, okay, minimum distance, and so on. All right. What about the similarity between a group 5, 4, and 3, 2, 1 in complete linkage clustering? 5, 4 is one group, 3, 2 is another group. Okay. So now, what would be the similarity? Sorry, the distance between these two groups in complete linkage clustering?
7.
It's 7. Are you sure? Any other response from anybody? Any response? You are computing?
Sir, in the cluster 4, 5, 4 is the farthest from 1 to 3 cluster, right?
Right. So what would be the final value? You have to look at the distance matrix, okay, and then you can figure out.
Okay, sir. It's 10, sir. Actually, 4 and
It's
1.
10. Yeah, it's 10. It's 10 because 4 is in one group, 1 is in another group. Okay, and then highest distance is here 10. So of course you get the 10 value. Okay, yeah, that's right. That's correct. Okay, so that is how basically you can compute the similarity in both complete linkage and single linkage. Okay, that's pretty simple. And then you merge it. Okay, all right. So I'm not talking about the average link, the same thing, the only thing that you compute the average of all the distances and so on and then do it. Okay, so I'm not talking about those things. Do you have any question after this one?
Sir, can you explain that 10 one which you explained in the last?
10. Oh, okay, all right, sure. Why not? Yeah. So the question that I posed is that I have two groups. One I have 4 and 5, and another group I have 1, 2, and 3. Okay. And then I want to know that what would be the distance between these two groups based on complete linkage similarity measure, complete linkage clustering similarity measure. Okay. Is the question clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Now, let me just show you the definition of the complete linkage similarity and then you better know it. Look at the complete linkage similarity measure. The similarity between two cluster or the group is defined by the, or rather the distance rather, between defined by the points, 2 points having highest distance. Okay, that is why in this case it was 10, because among all possible pairs from group 1 and group 2, you had the highest distance 10. So in this case, to look at this, so 5, 4 in one group, 3, 2, 1 in another group. Okay. Now if you look row number 4, okay, row number 4 and column number 1. So the distance between 4 and 1 is 10. And that's the maximum possible distance between any pairs of objects in this particular data. Okay, and that is why it was 10, value 10. Make sense? Okay. All right. Any other question? Okay. So let's move on to another very interesting clustering technique. It's relatively non-trivial. It's not like the previous ones. Okay, there's a bit of eigenvalue, eigenvector involved at the end of it. So which may be a little difficult to understand everything intuitively, but I will try to give intuition as much as possible. Okay, so it's again a different kind of clustering technique, but it's based on eigenvalue and eigenvector, and it tackles some of the problems that you know from k-means and other things. So let me just try to give a comparison between k-means and spectral clustering. So say you have a data something like this, okay, two concentric circle or something like this. Okay. Now it seems that there are two natural clusters in the data. Okay, one inside, another is outside. But if you apply k-means, for example, with two clusters, okay, k value 2, then you are going to get something like this, what you can see on the left side. Okay, so it basically splits the whole thing into two equal halves, first and second, because essentially it's based on the distance and so on and so forth. So it doesn't actually capture the natural cluster in the data. Okay, so spectral clustering was originally developed to specifically address this kind of problem, like where the clusters could be of arbitrary shape. Okay, So not like a particular shape like circular or things like this and things like that. Any kind of arbitrary shape clusters that spectral clustering can actually uncover. I'll show you little more examples. Okay. So if you think about this, there are several kinds of examples of different shapes and so on and so forth. You can actually get to know that actually this spectral clustering algorithms can figure out all these kinds of things. Okay, in a sense, kind of different connected components in the data and so on and so forth. So if you take the first example, NIPS 2001, K-means clustering will never be able to find out this kind of things. It's very difficult to figure it out. Okay, so those are the things that's problematic. So we try to address this problem using technical spectral clustering. Okay, again, it's card-based thing, but slightly different card than what we have seen so far, and the manipulation, of course, will be very different. Okay. So let us fall back to our the notion, the idea of minimum cut or cut and so on and so forth. Okay. So here we want to group points based on the links in the graph. Again, the links is going to drive the whole clustering things and so on and so forth. Okay. If there are too many links between two groups, then we want to put together. If they are not, then we want to separate them out. That's what we want to do. Okay. So first of all, spectral clustering algorithm is not only applicable for graphical data, it can also be applied to data of n-dimensional feature vector. Okay, all you have to do, you have to convert the data into a graph form. Okay. So if you have a data in graph form already, you do not have to worry about this. Okay, you do not have to worry about creating graph and so on and so forth. You can straight away apply spectral clustering algorithm. If you do not have that, say you have n-dimensional points and so on and so forth, you need to first create the graph for spectral clustering and then you can apply it. So this particular slide is for creating the graph from the raw data in n-dimensional data. So how we do it? Now, because the main thing that we use here in this case, the similarity or the distance or the weight or whatever between two objects. So we define the weight between every pairs of objects using Wij, which is nothing but e to the power of minus distance between 2 points divided by sigma square. Okay, people call it the Gaussian kernel and so on and so forth. So you can essentially use it. Okay. Now the intuition behind this, if you look at this, is a very simple equation. Okay. Now the numerator of this expression is basically distance between two objects, and denominator is a parameter. Okay, so this is basically for a particular set of it is actually constant, so you don't have to worry about it. Now if you look at this particular expression, that when the distance is close to 0, then you are going to get Wij value close to 1. This is maximum possible value that you can achieve. Okay. When the distance become very, very large, okay, then you are going to get Wij value close to 0. Okay, so close to 0 means this is very, very far apart. Okay, and that's what we basically want to manipulate it. Okay, so that's the way we can actually define the distance or the weight between different objects, even if they are in on n-dimensional space. Now that's perfectly all right, but you have to construct the graph from this data. Right? We have to basically build some kind of this nodes and edges and all kinds of stuff, and with their weights and so on and so forth. So broadly, you can actually do two things. You can actually create a fully connected graph. That means you take all pairs of objects and then simply compute this weight and then attach this edge weight. Okay, that's like little problematic because there will be too many edges if you have very large volume of data. Relatively better solution is that you only connect to k nearest neighbor. You don't want to connect me to everybody in the world. You don't want to do that. You simply want to figure out who are the closest neighbor of mine, say 10, 15, 20, whatever, and you only basically attach an edge and corresponding weight with it. Okay, so that's how basically you're going to create the graph from n-dimensional data. Now I want to pause for a moment, ask you if do you have any doubt, because if you don't understand this one, maybe it's difficult to appreciate what is going on later.
Sir, to get
Yes.
k nearest neighbors, we have to calculate distance between every pair, right?
Right.
So that's again the same problem, right? Adding
Yeah,
number
but
of
there the problem is basically computing the distance, but your graph doesn't. So the graph ultimately that you get is not very large because then you are basically sparsifying the whole thing. You are right from one angle, but then the final graph that you are going to get, there will be fewer number of edges, so it's little easy to manipulate later on.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Sir, in this example that you have shown, you have not used the k nearest neighbor, right?
Oh no, this is just for like this similarity and distance, something like that. Yeah, I'm not showing this k nearest neighbor. Yeah, because I do not have any
Okay.
specific data in this case. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So
Sir,
there are at least, yeah, please go ahead.
sir, how do we assume number of clusters here in this clustering?
Oh, okay, all right. So I will discuss that point later. Okay, but again, you basically a priori set how many clusters you want to get. There are some criteria, but they do not work very well in real data. So then I will discuss those things later in this lecture. Okay. Okay. Any other question?
Sir, so
Sir, when we are connecting only these k nearest neighbors,
Right.
let's assume that 1 and 2 are pretty close, but for 1, 3 is very close. So there can be this case that there can be k plus 1 for the first one.
So you mean the rather than saying k nearest neighbor, you want to set a threshold on the distance of similarity, and based on that you want to do
Yes,
something
sir.
like that. Yeah, that's another possibility. That's a better alternative. Yeah, but I'm not sure how much experience you have with dealing with real life data. So for real life data, setting out a good threshold is extremely tricky and difficult job. So people generally take simpler approach. Okay, so.
Yes,
But
sir.
your solution is much more realistic than KDRS number. That I completely agree. Okay. Any other question? Okay, all right. So then, what can we achieve by doing this one? Okay, so this is one just example. There are many examples. So actually, spectral clustering technique is very popular. Okay, very in fact relatively old as well, but it's very popular actually. So this originally when the people developed this one, they applied this on image segmentation. So you have an image and you want to find connected objects or connected things in an image. For example, if you take a picture of yours, then you want to probably segment images into hands, eyes, nose, hairs, and things like that. Okay, so you can basically do that using the spectral clustering things. Okay, which is difficult to find out using k-means and things like that. Anyway. So we talked about minimum cut, and so on and so forth. But why then not minimum cut? Okay. Now, if you look at this particular data, then the good minimum cut could be just one point on the extreme right, okay, on top, and then other points on the other side. Okay, because that's the basically minimum, or the other one, the lower side, and so on and so forth. But that doesn't seem like a very good solution. So a better cut would be in this case kind of somewhere in the middle, okay, depending upon the proximity and so on and so forth. So that's why you don't want to choose the minimum cut often. Although this algorithm is playing with minimum cut, but this playing with the normalized minimum cut, and you get to see in a moment. All right. So graph partitioning, just a quick graphical view of the data. So for example, you have the original graph and the corresponding similarity matrix. So you always dealing with the matrices, right? Because graph ultimately will be represented in computers as using matrix. So we'll represent the whole thing with the matrix. And when you kind of decompose this, it's a decomposition problem. So decompose this whole thing, then you are going to get blocks of matrices from the bigger matrix. Okay, that's what really we want to do. We want to find the blocks of matrices, sub-matrices from a bigger matrix. All right. So few quick useful terminologies. First of all, degree of nodes. Most of you probably know already, but just for recap, I am telling you this one. So degree of nodes. So degree is nothing but the total edge weight. Okay, total weights of all the edges associated with a particular node. Okay, so if you take a particular node, You see all the edges which is coming out of this particular node. You see their values and simply take the sum. That's it. Okay. Now volume of a set. What is the volume of a set? Volume of a set is nothing but the set is nothing but a bunch of nodes, and they also have their degrees. Okay. So the volume of a set is nothing but the sum of all their degrees, sum of nodes of all the degrees in the particular set. Okay. Now graph cut, I already told you in case of minimum cut and so on when we dealt with the unweighted graph. But now I will be dealing with the weighted graph. Okay. So in this case, the you can see this particular picture where you can see the nodes and the edge weights and so on and so forth. Okay. So exactly the same definition, but slightly tweaked to fit for the weighted graph is that in this case we basically want to minimize this partition, partition in such a way that we want to minimize the weights of the crossing edges. Okay. So in this case, this cut value, in particular case, this cut value is kind of, I think, of 0.3 because there are two crossing edges with weight 0.1, 0.2. So the cut value of A and B, two sets, is 0.3. Okay. So the goal, the primary goal, is to find out a partition that minimizes this cut. Same minimum cut business, but is on weighted graph. And because there is a slightly different challenge, so you have to tackle this slightly differently. Okay. So the idea that people actually develop is called normalized cut, or people often refer to as the N cut, normalized cut or whatever. Okay. So in normalized cut, what happens is that we define a normalized cut based on not only on cut value, but also with respect to the number of nodes that we have in every group. So in this case, the cut value A and B divided by volume of A, the definition of volume as you know, then cut value of A and B divided by volume of B, because there are two possible groups in this case, two groups actually. So every group will have their volumes, and so you simply normalize this whole thing. Okay. Why it is done? It is done just to avoid the unbalanced partitioning thing that you have seen in one of the slides. Okay, right? In all, like n-1 points in one group, 1 point in another group, and so on and so forth. So it kind of gives you the balanced partitioning. Okay, it's a balanced cut. Okay, which is much more applicable in a realistic situation. Okay. Now the part and which I already mentioned, that part which is like little, I would say, is involving a little bit of mathematics. Okay. And as you know, it's sometimes difficult to explain everything intuitively, but let me just try. Okay. So all we have to do, we have to solve the normalized cut problem. Okay. So what is the weight of this cut? Now say that I have one group C plus, I have another group C minus. Okay. Now, what is the weight of this cut? Is basically sum of all the crossing edges. Okay. You take the nodes from this side, that side, and simply take the sum of all the edges which are crossing the two groups. Okay, which is Wij. And now that I have also have the levels of this objects, Yi and Yj and so on and so forth. So Y is basically the levels, either +1 or -1. So +1 means Y belongs to the object belongs to one group, -1 means another group. It's basically bi-id partitioning, right? That's right. So Y is basically the one which will tell the kind of level which will tell whether I belong to this group or that group. Okay. And Wij is the weight matrix and so on. So my objective would be to minimize this particular objective function. Wij into Yij, Yi minus Yj whole square. Now the question is why there is 1/4. Okay, simply because I want to normalize the whole thing. Because when two objects, if Yi and Yj, they belong to the same group, okay, then this basic expression becomes 4. Okay, if they belong to different group, expression becomes 0. Okay, so I simply wanted to normalize this. That's why it is 1/4 and nothing else. Okay, so I basically want to play with this one. I have to minimize this particular thing, Jy in my case. So how can I minimize these things? And then at the end of it, what can I get so that I can use that information to find the graph partition? So again, this is a simple mathematics. It looks a little heavy on the slide, but it's a simple mathematics. It's just 10 plus 2 algebra, nothing else. So Jj is the expression I have copied from the previous slide, the same expression. Now you simply apply the 10th grade mathematics. Okay, then you get it, then you finally manipulate everything together step by step, some matrix manipulation and so on and so forth. And finally at the end of it, what you get? Half Z transpose D minus W into Z. Okay, that's what you get. Now incidentally, this is a little bit of manipulation. Incidentally, the D turns out to be a diagonal matrix. Okay, just the diagonal matrix involving the degrees of these nodes and so on and so forth. Okay. So in this particular approach, they gave this a very nice name. The matrix L, which is nothing but D minus W, the diagonal matrix minus the weight matrix, is called the Laplacian matrix or the graph Laplacian. Okay, and we really want to deal with this one. Okay, so there are lots of properties that people proved. I simply taken some properties which I thought important. There's a summary point. So L by like property L is a positive semi-definite matrix. So that means the smallest eigenvalue is always 0. Okay, and the corresponding eigenvector is 1. So that's the property of this Laplacian matrix, the graph Laplacian. Okay, which we'll use to kind of solve this problem. Now the solving a normalized card will require, as I have mentioned, the balancing things. So again, there's another property which I need to introduce, that Z transpose D1 is equals to 0. 1 is basically one vector. It has to be that. Second, all the Z i's are real numbers. Okay, so we need to normalize them together. So if we do that again, we have to use another property. It's called Z transpose DZ, which is equals to 1. Okay, these are some of the properties that people actually proved. I have simply taken from there. Okay, it will take a whole bunch of lectures to kind of prove everything from scratch, but I'm just simply telling you the most important properties that you need to solve this problem. Okay, so finally, now using all these properties, the resulting optimization problem that I have to deal with, that I have to minimize this expression on the left side, which I have copied from the previous slide, subject to these two conditions. Okay, in this particular slide. So this is called constraint optimization. You want to optimize a particular expression, not freely, but with respect to some constraints. So you have two constraints here. Okay, you cannot simply optimize here and there. Within that constraint, you have to optimize this expression. How we can do that? Okay. So now when you have this kind of things, like you have to optimize a particular expression with respect to these things, standard technique that people use is called Lagrangian multiplier. Not sure whether you have been covered this one before. Okay, if not, then maybe I can do a quick thing in the next lecture on Lagrangian multiplier. But it's pretty simple stuff, relatively simple stuff. So it's Lagrangian multiplier. You introduce this one, then you simply do derivative and things like that, and finally you get D minus WZ is equals to lambda DZ. Okay, this comes from little bit of Lagrangian multiplier and then derivative and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, the eigenvector with smallest eigenvalue, okay, which is lambda is equals to 0, is always the constant vector Z equals to 1 in this case. Okay, but this does not satisfy the constant. If you see, look at the constant, you have two constants, Z transpose DZ equals to 1, Z transpose D1 equals to 0. So the smallest eigenvalue does not satisfy the constant, so you cannot take it. Okay. So therefore, because our goal is to minimize this objective, okay, hence we can take the second smallest eigenvalue. Okay, if the smallest eigenvalue would have satisfied the constant, we have taken that. But because it actually violated the constant, you cannot take that. So simply because we have to minimize the objective, so you can take the second smallest eigenvalue and so on. Okay, and undo it. So you accept the second smallest eigenvalue. Okay, and corresponding eigenvector. So in a nutshell, and I will tell you how you can use the eigenvector that you finally get to find a partition. But in a nutshell, what you have to do, that first you have to compute the affinity matrix W or the weight matrix W from the data. You have to compute the degree matrix, which is diagonal matrix D. Okay, two things you need. Then you have to solve the eigen equations, the eigenvalue problem, D minus WY is lambda dy and so on and so forth. This is Laplacian matrix thing. And finally you get this smallest eigenvalue and the corresponding eigenvector. Okay, and that particular eigenvector we can use to partition the graph into two. Okay. So this is the final slide for partitioning. So what happens that because you have n say nodes in a graph, so the dimension of this eigenvector would be n. There would be n entries in the eigenvectors. Okay, and so every entry will have some real number value. Okay, telling whether I belong to this class or that class and so on and so forth. Okay, so all we have to do now, we have to split the eigenvector into two based on some threshold. Okay, so all the points, all the values above a threshold will belong to one cluster, below threshold belong to another cluster, something like this. Okay. So again, it's difficult sometimes to find a very good threshold. So what people typically do, okay, they can pick the median value. These are all real numbers, all the values in the eigenvector. So you can pick the median value and then simply split based on the median value. So the values above median value is in one group, the values below median value is another group, and so on. Okay. Or you can, what you can do, you can choose n possible splitting points from your data. Okay. And then basically choose one which will actually minimize this normalized card value. You can very easily compute the normalized card value and simply choose the one threshold which will pick the minimum value. Okay, so that's the possible way you can actually split the eigenvector into two groups, and accordingly you can say, okay, this particular node will belong to this group, this particular node will belong to that group, and so on and so forth. Okay. So I am done. If you have any question, please feel free to ask me. I shall be happy to answer your question. Okay, all right. So then, yeah, please.
In the Gaussian kernel formula, the denominator is the variance.
Yes, you can think this is it's a variance. Yeah.
Okay. We have sigma squared also that one.
Sorry? Yeah, sigma square. Yeah, it's a variance. You can take this variance here.
Yes.
So see, sometimes people choose this as a variance. Sometimes people actually choose this as a kind of free parameter. You can optimize using this thing. Yeah. So essential objective is to control the kind of, to some extent, it is to penalize these very big numbers, right?
So it depends on the particular problem.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Distribution of the data, right? Okay, so one small announcement. So tomorrow